Park Service could expand the King Historic Site to a spot few in Atlanta really know much about. The King site is on Auburn Avenue. The expansion could take place 3 miles west of Vine City. That's near the Falcons Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And it is where Dr. King and his family lived during the 1960s prior to the assassination in Memphis in 1968. 11 Alive's Doug Richards is there. He is live for us tonight with the very latest. Doug?
Well, Jeff, this is the house that you're talking about. It's in Northwest Atlanta in the Vine City neighborhood. It's a very modest, very low-key residence, and there are arguably fewer places with a more compelling history in Atlanta. It's where Dr. King and his family lived for the 4 years prior to his death in '68. The 4-bedroom brick home is on what's normally a quiet street until the tour bus pulls up and 24 visitors exit, as they did during a rain shower Saturday.
But this is it.
It was the home of Martin Luther King Jr., his wife, and 4 young children. Fulton County records still show the owner is the late Coretta Scott King, Dr. King's widow.
The green sofa in that house from 1968 is still there, with a plastic cover over it.
As a young man, Tom Houck worked for King's family and now leads tour groups to the Sunset Avenue home and other civil rights landmarks in Atlanta.
It was Dr. King's decision to move to Vine City.
Yet even to many longtime Atlanta residents, the house is an unknown piece of civil rights history. The National Park Service runs the King Historic Site 3 miles away. Houck expects the Park Service to acquire this property too, sooner rather than later.
But if and when the Park Service takes it over, you'll have a tremendous amount of people coming over here. I don't know how the neighbors will feel about it, but I'm sure they will be.
Well, our house is right here.
One of those neighbors is City Councilman Michael Julian Bond, who grew up 2 doors down from the King home.
I think this house is worthy of preservation for, future Americans to come by and see actually how Dr. Martin Luther King actually lived, where his children played, where he got a respite from the world.
We have sought input all weekend, actually, from the National Park Service and from the King family, and we have not heard back from those folks. We do know the National Park Service has had a quiet presence here for some time. There was a security guard here all day who said that he was a contractor with the National Park Service. Councilman Bond says the National Park Service has maintained the grounds to some extent. So the question is when the next step will be taken to make this part of the historic site. Back to you.
Doug, there's been so much conjecture really over the decades about that house. There's always been talk going back to the 1980s that the National Park Service would take over. Is it different this time, do you think?
Well, there just seems to be a bureaucratic drag. It took them decades to purchase the birth home on Auburn Avenue, and, this may be a decades-long process as well.
Yeah, let's hope that gets taken care of. I think, man, the world needs to see that place, and I think it would mean a lot to a lot of people visiting Atlanta as well.
No question.
Doug Richards, thank you. A charity